Morning all.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody? I don't see any faces. I hear voices. Môre Veronica, klink na jou.
Die wind het ons hierdie oostewind het ons weggery.
O, daai wind is op pad Kaap toe.
Morning, guys. Morning, colleagues.
Morning, Tsepo. How's things?
Good, good. And yourself?
No, that's great. Yeah, it's good that we're back in full swing. A lot of work to be done. Watching the Olympics. Are you following?
Yesterday we had a silver.
Yes.
Yes.
First breakthrough.
Yep.
First breakthrough, and there's more to come.
Yeah.
You think we will get 10 medals? What was the target?
The target was 15. I'm not sure. Remember, they gave us their own target.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll hear from them when they come back.
Yeah, I think we must invite them to our committee.
Yeah.
Come show us that medals. Like the Rugby World Cup guys did. Came to Parliament.
They came to Parliament, yeah, I remember. In other words, you must invite them to Parliament. KwaZulu-Natal colleague is quiet. Zondi. Wathula nje kwenzakalani Natal?
I don't hear other voices now.
KwaZulu-Natal is quiet when I say language. It's not there is nothing going on the ground now. Even the most critical area of Phoenix, it's business as usual now. But there are still fears because the police are there and people are still living in fear. But it's normal now.
No, that's good to hear that.
Yeah, it was good to see on the news how the schools and the department visited schools and all the sectors, the leadership all went to the various places. It was good to see how they tried to bring harmony back to the community. Very good effort.
Yeah, I will go there. But I think soon things will be normal again.
Honorable members, good morning.
Morning, Chair.
Morning, Chair.
Good
Good to hear from you,
Chair. I'm suspecting now, I've seen that.
Good, Chair.
Oh, my God. Nithi ubuso ntombazana. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, our department, our staff. I'm suspecting that honorable members have already done the opening remarks. When I was listening, it's some of the things that I was going to share with honorable members.
Yeah, we're very excited, Chair. Very excited.
Yes. In a lighter note, honorable members, there comes this Delta. Let me take this opportunity officially declaring this bad news which happened in this committee, and let alone that we were all every day having this bereavement from our own families. But in this committee, can we the weather is not right here. You have seen me. Can I take off my picture? The same honorable member is going to have a network problem because I've seen where he is. I'm having a big tree who always take out my network, especially when the weather is very focused, overcast. Can I take off my video? You have seen me, I've dressed it up because I'm going to chair the committee. I'm in a parliament. So maybe that's the one thing that you must show our faces to respect the committee. I'm saying, let me take this opportunity on behalf of our committee to say to the family of this committee and the family of the late Honorable Nchaiza, who's Lulama Nchaiza, who passed on, whom we know that he was part of us, a very dedicated member, was saying condolences to the family, especially to the wife, Madlamini, and to the entire family, which is also their political home of Honorable Nchaiza. But to add on, I'm worried about how the staff of our department are departing, honorable members. Why is the department trying to fill the vacancies? I'm suspecting, if I'm correct, now we have about 4, if I remember correctly, about 4 staff members from the department, let alone from our good selves. We lost our conduct advisor. We have been told that Dr. Basson passed on, and then we said Kamahlango passed on. We were saying our condolences to the family, to the department, and to us also, because we're a big family. We must not forget to say condolences to the people who lost the loved ones due to what has happened in the country in these past weeks. We are aware that some, they are not yet even buried because they cannot afford. Let's have a silent of moment prayer, just 2 minutes. I thank you. May their souls rest in peace. I thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, I've heard, because all of us, when we are having the Olympic Games, we are no longer sleeping, watching as loving sport people of Mzansi. We've noticed that at least after we've been watching, seeing in some events that we are losing, but there comes this female presenting us, first broke the heats in Olympics, but this morning he came with the silver, as honorable members are saying. This is a victory for South Africa. With others, I've seen honorable members that we're not doing well, but as I was listening to you, Honorable Mena, saying that we'll get results when they are coming back. In those words, I'm presenting the agenda in front of you members. With the Honorable Njaiza, I'm told by the family that is going to be put his funeral on Saturday. Some of us have lost 2 members of family. I'm suspecting on that day I'll be also burying 2 members of my family due to this COVID-19. Let's not forget to put on our masks. Let's not forget not to be in huge meetings. I know that the elections of local government are being postponed, but I know that we're all leaders will wanting to be tempted now that we're in level 3 to have some meetings. Try to be very careful, honorable members. This Delta, it's so vicious than any other that we've started with. If we can manage to have virtual meetings, but if it's meetings who are not more than 50, can we try that? We must hold those meetings maybe in an open space where there is a lot of air, but with mask on. This thing, all those who are praying, but now they are asking, what have we done? But go and take your jab. I'm suspecting in this meeting, we are all about to have the second and the first. Those who doesn't want to, it's upon themselves, but those who believe that they can take their injection must do so, and we must also assist the rural ones to register. But in some provinces, they do allow people to get in without a registration. So, agenda in front of us. Anyone can.
Chairperson?
Anyone can adopt the agenda. Yes, Honorable Mhlongo.
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the agenda. And Chair, I wanted to propose, as you did last time, let's have all the items with time frame. How many minutes per item? I think last time we did well. I'll propose that we adopt with those amendments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. I'm suspecting Jabu will circulate that. I will tell you how many minutes per discussion. Any second?
Chairperson, Honorable Adams.
Yes, Honorable Adams.
I second the proposal for adoption. Thank you.
The agenda is being adopted. There's somebody who's speaking here. I don't know who's that. I can't see. According to the agenda, can our administrators give us apologies? Jabu?
Good day, Chairperson. Good day, members. We have 3 apologies, Chair. We have I see the minister is in the meeting, but he did submit an apology indicating that he will attend only parts of the meeting due to cabinet-related commitments today. We also have an apology, Chair, from the Deputy Minister, who is in Durban for a district development model program in the eThekwini, Chair. And we also have an apology from Inkosi Luthuli. He won't be attending due to him having problems with his devices, so he won't be able to join us today, Chair. Those are the three apologies that we have.
Thank you, Jabu. Any apology from the department except the ministry? And then DJ, do you have any apology?
No, Honorable Chair, we are all in the meeting. Thanks.
Okay. Jabu, as we've done in the last meeting about the locating of minutes, now we're going to the briefing by the department on the repatriation policy and then the deliberations. I'll tell members how many minutes, but let me take this opportunity to confirm that the two official letters of the minister and DM, I did also get. The minister is going to attend the cabinet committee, but he asked to start with us. Honorable the Minister, who are in point 4, the briefing by the department, you will guide us what to do. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to you and members of the Portfolio Committee, and thanks for inviting us to deliberate and deal with matters of national importance. The two matters in front of us today, Chair. One has to do, as you have just said, the repatriation and restitution of human remains and other heritage objects. The second one is the update on the third phase of the relief intervention by the department to ease the difficulty of athletes and artists in this COVID period. So those are the two main issues we're dealing with here today, Chair. The first matter really is about fulfilling the fundamentals of the Constitution as it's outlined in the preamble of the Constitution, that we ought to recognize the injustices of our past, to honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. So it's mainly about the suffering of Africans under the hands of our erstwhile colonizers, both from colonialism and colonialism of a special type, which is apartheid. And Chair, we got to, as a nation, look into this issue of repatriation because these people suffered because for freedom, and they were freedom fighters, mainly of them, and others, their mortal remains were taken on a racialistic basis to do some science on them in a very racial way. And they fought for this freedom whose content is the liberation of Africans in particular and Blacks in general. And this also, at the same time, it has the effect of liberating the white community from the false and pernicious ideology of racial superiority and the insecurity attached to oppressing others. Now, it took us time, Chair, to reach the point we have reached because of a number of implications and consultations and so on. And amongst others was the consultation with our sister countries on the continent, who were struggling with us because they feel, even now, that our countrymen and women who perished in their soils belong to them too. And this is one very important matter we need to underline, Chair. Because here we're talking about the freedom fighters under PAC, under AZAPO, under BCM, under African National Congress, who were taken as fellow citizens in those countries. And we've always been very close and linked to them, both from a Pan-Africanist point of view and politically. You would know, Chair, that we've just bid farewell to one of the great African giants, President Kenneth Kaunda. And this is the man who, amongst those on the continent, feel that those people who perish in their soil have to remain there because they belong to them as well. President Kaunda, so close to this country chairperson, in the sense that you also recall that when it was still Rhodesia, then he was the Secretary General of Northern Rhodesia African National Congress, and later became the president of Zambia African National Congress, which in subsequent years metamorphosized into UNIP. So it's a very important matter, Chair, which I think we need to, in a way of respecting our freedom fighters, to pay attention to. The second matter really is the update on the relief fund and relief funding for the sector aimed to benefit artists and athletes. And this is the third phase, Chair. And because it's the relief, we did allude to the fact that it marks the end of the relief intervention. We're back to ways of looking at sustaining this creative and sporting economy and see how we move forward with the programs. So, Chair, those are the matters. The DG, who's leading the department, would be able to take you to the finer details thereof. But all in all, I think that it's quite important matters to engage in, especially ensuring that we fulfill our obligation. We make no apology to honor those who suffered for freedom in this country and other countries. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable the Minister. With the background, you know, I was in another funeral of the very close family, Advocate Kabela from Johannesburg. When I was seeing that people there, they are not sanitizing the mic, I had to write saying that one of my close family was going to give the message of support to Mankos. I've said after the memorial service, I've said on this day of the funeral, you must carry the white handkerchief like the pass on Ndate KK, and you must wipe that mic yourself with that white handkerchief, and then you can throw away after you finish, put it smartly. We do remember him with that white handkerchief. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I was trying that let's divide the minutes, but I'm seeing our staff are not coming back to me. Jabu, now we're going to give the DG that they must present, and we don't want that the committee must have less minutes in order that they must engage with the presentation. Now I'm going to give it to the DG that he must tell who's going to present. And whilst I was still listening to the minister, I was saying that what we've done last time, really, we came with written minutes. We didn't, but you know how we did last time. Jabu, did you do what I've asked that you must do? Jabu,
yes, Chair. I've
yes,
sent it to your email, Chair. Okay. Chair, the department will present the repatriation policy from 9:20 to 9:40. And then from 9:40 to 10:25, there'll be discussions. There will be 45 minutes for the portfolio committee to interact with the department on the presentation. I've emailed the draft time program to members as well for ease of reference.
Okay. DG, we are welcoming you again to drive the ship. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. Good morning to the honorable members. And would like to also say good morning to my honorable minister, Minister Natim Teto, Honorable Chairperson, and I have in my team just the DDGs for now that I can indicate in present. DDG Chikwatamba, responsible for corporate services. DDG Ndima, responsible for heritage promotion and protection. And then we've got in our midst, DDG Kumalo, responsible for arts, culture, promotion and development. And then DDG Khan, responsible for recreation development and sport promotion. Those are the DDGs that we have. And then we've got the representative, the chief of staff is in the meeting, Mr. J.P. Law, and as well as Vuile from the office of the deputy minister and the director from my office. Noting that, Chairperson, we only have 20 minutes. May I not delay in the presentation? Minister has encapsulated so well the need for having this policy framework and the fact that our people need to find closure, which is quite critical by having their loved ones returned who might have died either in combat or in exile, or for whatever reason that they might have died while abroad, but also that the objects that might, heritage objects that have might have been stolen or forcefully removed from the country, must also be opportunities to get them back into the country, for all these is part of our heritage. I will therefore then ask that the DDG responsible for heritage promotion and protection is indeed allowed to take us through. Lulama will be running the presentation. Over to you, DDG Ndima.
Thank you very much, DG. Thank you to the members of the committee, the chairperson of the committee, honorable members of the committee, the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, and all the colleagues present here. I will try to be as brief as I can. I will run straight to page 3 or slide 3, which then begins to talk about the purpose of this presentation, which is, of course, to brief the Portfolio Committee on the finalization of the national policy on repatriation and restitution of human remains and heritage objects. But also, it's very important that the committee note that this policy was presented and adopted by Cabinet at its sitting of the 16th March 2021. Going to the introduction, we are saying that this policy presents an opportunity to bring the possibility of repatriation and restitution of human remains It also brings an opportunity of coming up with a coherent framework for the management of requests, claims, and research by the national government as part of the healing and reconciliation of the communities and the people of South Africa. It covers the remains of South Africans that lie outside the borders of South Africa, on the African continent, or overseas, as well as inside South Africa. Remains of people who fell in the line of duty in military action or in civil society struggles against apartheid. Corpses that were collected illegally or unethically, which found their way into the repositories of institutions in South Africa or overseas. Remains of people which entered the repositories of institutions for the purpose of racial research, as the minister has indicated in his summation in the beginning of this presentation. It also covers material culture, artifacts, and documentation that are closely associated with human remains as grave goods, as bodily depictions, or being collected together. Now, the question would be, what's the strategic focus of the memorandum? Now, we first talk about the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, which provides rights to cultural, religious, and linguistic communities to enjoy their cultural practices, affirming that government is committed to the cultural, social, and economic upliftment and well-being of all its people without discrimination. But also it draws its inspiration from the National Development Plan that indicates that arts and cultural activities can play a major role in healing and restoring pride. But also our white paper on arts, culture, and heritage, which emphasizes the importance of heritage in redressing historical inequalities. It also draws its inspiration from Sustainable Development Goal 16, which is about peace and justice. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture will facilitate restorative justice by restoring the humanity of people that were stripped of their humanity and dignity, even in their death. As you see that some of these people, their corpses were dug out of their graves in the name of racial science, as has been said before. Now, getting into the discussion, it's very important to bring to the attention of the committee that we have had this ad hoc, we have had this repatriation and restitution on an ad hoc basis. I can maybe relate the story of Sarah Bachman returned to his home country in 2002. The couple, Klaas and Troy PNR, returned to their home country in 2012. The stalwarts, Moses Kotane and J.B. Marks, returned from the Novodevichy cemetery in Russia back to South Africa in 2015. All these were done outside the framework. So this policy bridges that gap because government was unable or practically to undertake and carry the cost of the numerous requests. So this policy provides that framework to initiate and implement repatriation and restitution of human remains and heritage objects in museums, cultural institutions, as well as universities. But also for the South African government to develop through diplomatic relations and the 1970 Convention in particular, arrangements with foreign governments to repatriate and restitute human remains. But also provides a framework for provinces to initiate and implement restitution of human remains and heritage objects in government-funded museums and institutions within their borders. For human remains and heritage objects held in privately funded institutions, this policy recommends that the state, on behalf of and together with the requesting individuals, families or communities, enter into negotiations with the privately funded institutions for the repatriation and restitution of human remains and heritage objects. But also it clearly states that no province shall, without the involvement of national government, initiate and implement a project for the repatriation of human remains and heritage objects back into the country, as such remains and objects may fall within the competency of national government. But also, the all repatriation, restitution, and repairing of human remains and heritage objects by both national and provincial government shall be done in conjunction with district and local municipalities together with other stakeholders. It also envisages the creation of the Repatriation and Restitution Office, which will be established within the South African Heritage Resources Agency. This, then the policy also further envisages and recommends close cooperation and collaboration between key national departments. We also very clear in the policy that no grave shall be left open or unattended. Normally what we do for posterity and also for perpetuating the memory of those who used to use that grave, we normally have to leave a commemorative structure once the exhumation has been done. So that's how we dealt with matters of the two stalwarts, J.P. Marks and Moses Kotane. Now the implementation plan that is being envisaged is a phased-in approach, understanding the limited resources that government has. We're looking at the first year where we would need to look at the establishment of the RRO, and then we start to do country-to-country cases, 2 to 3 years. These are just examples. And then 4 to 6 years, we're looking at we continue with the country-to-country cases up until 7 to 10th year. And then the demand for repatriation at this point projected to subside, and cases could be conducted as is required and necessary. So what we plan to do is to start with this process and understanding that later on, you would find that the demands is not going to be the same as in the initial phases. And this policy will be reviewed at regular intervals for effectiveness, efficiency, and consistency. And of course, it will be implemented in close collaboration with all spheres of government and relevant entities. And here, it's just financial implications, which I would not touch on, but they are here. All activities or duties relevant to the mandates of other relevant government departments shall be funded from the budgets of those departments. There are departments that are very crucial here, Chairperson. These are Minister of Justice. They've got a missing task team committee that deals with these matters. The Department of Military Veterans also does similar work. So those are the government departments that we're going to be working very closely with. And of course, we know the risk that this policy has is that government may not be able to carry the cost of all the requests. So what we think should happen is maybe to create a special fund to do this work within a specified time so that we know when it begins and when it ends. And then the implementations for vulnerable groups, we indicate here that during the 19th and early 20th centuries, the remains of many people were taken from their graves to be studied as part of racial science. These people are still mourned today. To repatriate and restitute these remains and ultimately rebury them is but a means of restoring the human dignity of the affected families and communities. Basically, these people were dehumanized, and this is a process of rehumanization of these people. Similarly, many objects that are deemed sacred or important to communities have in the past been taken from them and placed in the museums worldwide. These communities are proud of their heritage and require these objects to be returned to them. Now, departments and parties consulted. Here we've had a number of roadshow workshops to provinces. We have 7 national consultative workshops where we work with museums, universities, government departments, curators of human remains collections, experts, as well as members of civil society. Inputs and comments were received at these workshops. They were recommended for approval by the Social Protection Community and Human Development Cluster on 3 June 2020. This policy was ultimately presented to Cabinet Committee on the 24th of March 2021. It's good to note that whilst the policy was approved, Cabinet noted that more work would be done, especially on the comments made by members dated 24 March 2021. Cabinet approved with the following directives: a need to develop clear criteria to which human remains should be repatriated, clarifying how requests for repatriation and restitutions would be dealt with, ensuring that there is sufficient resources and a common intergovernmental understanding and approach, and clarifying the financial implications. So the Portfolio Committee, we are presenting this for the Portfolio Committee to note the adoption of the national policy on the repatriation and restitution of human remains and heritage objects by Cabinet. I would want to stop there, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You are just on the dot. Thank you, DG. Thank you, DGG. Honorable members, that's the presentation. Starting from the Minister, DG, and DDG, let's engage and discuss. I've seen the hands, Honorable Madlingozi, Honorable Mhlongo, Honorable Malomane. I'm hearing somebody, I'm suspecting. Honorable Dennis.
Joseph, thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Dennis, Honorable Zondi. In that order, you must bear in mind, even to your good selves, that
Honorable Space, my hand is up also.
Oh, Honorable Sibisi, okay.
Thank
In
you.
that order, my camera is on. I am the Bonanga. Okay. No, I see very
Thank you very much.
I've noted you, Honorable.
Again.
No, I've noted you now. Okay, Mama.
Thank you
Honorable
very much.
Madlingozi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I welcome the presentation, and I would love to greet everyone. And may I also add to the condolences of the people who passed on. The producer that I've been working with, Lawrence Machiza, passed on also this last week. My questions would be as simple as that. How will the policy execute examination of guidelines if its guidelines include the examination ordinance of 1980, which means that the laws will still be those that were promulgated before this new dispensation of New South Africa? And another thing is, like, what was the reason the South African government not have asked for the human parts that the barbaric Western countries still hold when the seat of King Langalibalele was brought to South Africa and when the bale of the sheep Mendi was brought? The other question that I have is, how can the policy agree that the cost to return those human remains and the heritage objects be borne by both the requesting state and the private institution, while these remains and objects were obtained unethically by the satanic Western countries? The question I have is, who will constitute this repatriation and restitute office? The other question I have, does the department believe that all this work will be done through this 10-year period within the budget of 30 million rands, taking into consideration that there will be archaeologists and anthropologists and research teams, including the administration, in all this work? Another question that I have, the last one, would be, why, according to this policy, under the unethically collected human remains, the descendant community advised by the advisory committee be the one to negotiate rather than the government of South Africa making clear that the robbers of human remains bring back the body parts of our people? Why must we negotiate to have them brought back in our country? Thank you, Chair, for now.
Thank you, Honorable Madlenkos. Honorable Mhlongo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, welcome the presentation, and we understand and we rightly note that we have to redress the imbalances of the past. Chair, my question is, since there's a risk, I think the presenter stated clearly that there's a financial implication, when will they establish this special fund? And what turnaround time can we have? Because if you noted that there's a risk on the project, you come up with how to remedy that. How long will it take? I think your consultation processes have noted it, but you did not include issues of all levels of government, your local government. Are you going to consult all levels of government, provincial government? Another issue that I wanted to echo, I think we understand that we have to be sensitive above all, because we must not just do things for the sake of doing them politically, but I think this project must align with beliefs of different families. Why I'm saying that, there was a family that I know that they had to repatriate a family member which they were not even informed. They only informed them on the day. Now I'm saying, Guti, the Ubuntu principle must prevail on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Malomane.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. My colleagues, Minister, the officials from the department and our staff. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome the presentation from the department. My question, it will be based on the issue of stakeholders. Because on the discussion, there's I think local municipalities are also involved. I just want to find out what is the role. Is there any role that is played by COPTA? And then the other thing that I want to be clarified is the repatriation and restitution office that needs to be established within the South African Heritage Resource Agency. It has been established or not? If not, when can we expect the establishment of that one? The other thing that I want to find out, I think maybe I was covered by Honorable Mhlongo and Honorable Madlinkos about the issue of the financial status of the repatriation, that the budget, it seems as if I'm not quite sure whether the budget, is it going to be enough, it will cater, and what will happen if maybe now there can be something that there can be a family or individuals that can request repatriation, or is the department going to be able to do that regarding the issues of the financial status as it is, as we can see that now we are having a challenge even in our economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Malomane. There's somebody who, maybe it was you, Honorable Zondi.
Thank you, Chair.
Try the minister, we are hearing minister speaking. Please handle that, Honorable Zondi.
No, it's not me, Chair.
Oh, the voice is like yourself. I'm sorry, Minister. Thank you, Honorable Zondi.
Yes, Chair. Chair, we welcome the presentation and the framework. Chair, it shows that the minister and the department, a transformation by Peter Ngesandla, and we appreciate that, Chair. Chair, I don't have a question. The only question that I had was with regard to the financial implications, and my colleagues has touched on that. we appreciate Chair, this framework, because when the minister was making his remarks, he touched on one thing that is very important: the negotiations and the ownership of the remains of the freedom fighters who perished outside the country. And I was touched because at once we visited the Mozambique, and we were taken through the Matola monument, and they took us through even where the freedom fighters stayed, and up until they were attacked, their grave, the graveyard where they were put to rest, and also the monument. And they were clear to us that it's part of our heritage. The fact that we harbored them, they were part of our revolutionary path, and so we don't regard them as foreigners. They were part of our battles, so we don't want them to be taken away from us. But we wish their families to come and visit the graveyards, and also be part of the history of the Matola people. So when the minister is saying, some of the countries are saying they are part of the heritage, I concur with him, because it's something that I heard myself from one of the countries. Botswana is one country with the same perspective. So this framework, Chair, will assist on that, because it does not say we will let them stay there forever without any negotiation. But the negotiation between the families and the authorities is very important, and it covers all of that, because yes, it is very touching if as South Africa we didn't have a framework. I don't know because there are some of the remains of our patriots who perished outside, who have been brought back by the South African government. I don't know, before this policy, what were you dealing with some of the issues, sometimes to people, the prominent liberators who were buried outside the country, like Moses Mabhida and others. But I appreciate, Chair. I think it is a good move, and it shows that transformation is within ourselves. And I thank the minister and the team for this document, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sondi. Honorable Dennis.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just would like to express my appreciation to the Minister and the Cabinet for the adoption of this policy and the work that the Department has done over the last couple of years, bringing about this policy. A very important one in this term of office, and what we must achieve still, and the groundwork that we must lay for parliaments to come and generations to come, Chairperson. A question, Chairperson, I would like to ask also on the risk funding part of the risk point that was raised on the slide. And I would like to ask, are there no international organizations that deals with this with funding in particular that we can go to that would support the concept. It is an international concept too, where other countries have suffered the same as South Africa. And then I would like to ask if the Department of Public Works are not part of this, because they deal with, according to previous incidents, deal with funerals and state funerals. So I just want to know if Public Works can become part of the assisting us, particularly with the cost. And then there's an NPO that I read about, Ifalethu. It was funded in the past, and I would like to know what is our relationship with a non-profitable organization and what role they can play. And then the last point, Chairperson, the local government. I feel this policy must go to all spheres of government, and the role that the national department and the provincial department played with COSAS here a few months ago in Montague in the Western Cape. There was a big issue, and I was the constituency head for Hesekwa in the previous term of 5 years, and I walked this road with the burial of COSAS. And Cape Nature, who owns a lot of the land in nature reserves, so there's so much to go through. So there's local government per se, particularly with the sacred places that we must deal with, and where we must bury these remains. So I would appreciate that the policy can be distributed to local government and also the traditional leaders, and Khoisan Bill that was signed by the President in 2019, that this information gets to local government, because there's a lot of questions asked from these communities where the workshop and consultation took place, but local government can't answer. And I think we as a committee has that responsibility in a department to educate and make them aware what their role is in dealing with this as we move forward. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Dennis. Honorable Sibisi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me also join my colleagues in appreciation and welcoming the presentation, and also appreciating what the Minister and the Cabinet has done, and also the departments towards this policy. Indeed, it shows that we are moving forward. But one is having a concern, because most of our colleagues have emphasized the issue of funds or funding. But now they are also in a presentation that there will be some criteria. Now, once you speak of criteria, I wish to ask that comparing criteria and the issue of funding, so will not the criteria sometimes compromise those who were not politically affiliated, not to be qualifying or not to be repatriated first? Now, saying that the preference, will it going to be given only to the political affiliates in terms of the criteria, or what will the criteria constitute, comparing that there will be also a shortage of funding to cover all of this work? That was my concern. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sibisa. Honorable Kaula. Vula Mama, Honorable Kaula. I'm mute. Please, staff assist. Vula, ivalekile. Vula, yes.
Vala, Nazog. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ngibonga ne presentation wayihlekani. Yes, we are serious. We are not playing. Siyasha wathi nokuqala KZN anisilekeleli. Okay, kuyahleka noma kufiwa bakithi. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Ngibonge ne presentation. Mphinde ngidlulise amazwi abuhlungu okule mindeni ethe yasishiya, and baningi esebesishile i-members eParliament. Mphinde Nkosi yami ngidlulise naku Honorable Basondi Mphinde ngidlulise naku Honorable Chaisa. Baningi abahambile nabesifazana ade sinabo nakuleli committee, omama Maluleka, baningi. Ngithi emndenini nasezihlobeni zabo akwehlanga olungehla. And okwesibili kubuhlungu ngoba uyabona if silana eParliament eqinisweni siwe singasenza ukumele ama-political parties ethu siwe sesizingane zomuntu oyedwa ezizomela idingo zabantu phansi ngendlela eyodwa. Ngithi kumina kubuhlungu kuyaqaqamba. Honorable Basondi ngisebenzile naye, angazi sikubani osizolwela abantu kulento yaka-water, umuntu bekwazi kulwa alwe ngempela. Ubone ngikhumbula evula amagate umlungu esebalekile phesha engafuni sizobona inkinga wavula ngenkani. Ngithi-ke ngiyazi uNkulunkulu nawe uyabathanda abantu abasebenzela abantu. Ngaleyo ndlela ngithi abaphumule ngokuthula, sangathi zonke inkinga abayibonayo abayishiyela emhlabeni bengasilwela bengale. Sengibuyela-ke la kwikomiti esihlalo. Ngizothi qaphu nje ngoba vele nomoya wami awukho right, ngisenalama trauma la ase-KZN. Ngizoqala lapha kuminister. Minister wami angithandi lento ukuthi njalo makukhulunywa kuloko kwakhulunywa nge-apartheid, while thina siwu-government abantu abamnyama sesiphathe more than 28 years. Lezi zinto ezazenzeka before kufuna sidlulise sibone ukuthi nakho thina manje la sesikhona noma mhlambe sesizame kangakanani ngoba lento lokho saklema njalo apartheid mina ngibukisa ngelinye iso. Engizokusho nje okokuqala engizokhuluma ngakho, if usikhuluma ngizalana ke manje ngizojomba njoba ngichaza ukuthi ingqondo yami ayikho kahle hle, ngingenile nje komdini because ngihlonipha. Ngisa lapha kuvusa ithemba. Vusa ithemba phela ake livuse ithemba. Honorable vusa ithemba Mdima. Mawukhuluma ngama communities afake input noma afake imbono, ngabe ukhuluma ngamaphi ama communities? Kanjalo nalento ama stakeholder, imaphi la ukhuluma ngawo? Why ngisho njalo na? Ngisho ukuthi mina imosti mawubuka ngisho lapha ku TV akekho noyedwa omele abantu laba abaphansi kuma communities noma emakhaya kuma rural areas. Ngiyangibona mina ikhondla the most of them uthola ukuthi ongqiwa vele ilabantu vele abayedlela izambana likaPondo. If lana sikhuluma ngezinto la ilokhuzana, if sikhuluma ngezinto la asibone phela lento ebizwa ukuthi implementation, ku-implementwe izinto zenzeke nothi lento ugcina sithina sikhuluma ngazo ngoba ekugcineni siyahamba isikhathi. Mina ngishaya ihlombe, mina ngishayela izinto esizixoxayo engaboni zenzeka phansi. La phansi sinawo amaciko, la phansi sinawo abantu abanama sports ahlukene, but asiboni kwenzeka. Ngidlule lapha. Ngithi ngibonge ku Honorable Sibisi. Nami lento oyishoyo vele bengalidingi nayo ukuthi ento ngiphinda yona. Uyabona lezi zinto minister okhuluma ngazo aziyi kubantu phansi, especially if you are not ilokhuzana ipolitiki le ekhona. I-ANC izenzela yona izinto zayo, ayimfaka omunye ngisho ngakubona ukuthi wenzani into enomqondo nekwazi ukuqoqa intsha noma ekwazi ukuqoqa abantu base South Africa begcina bengahambi bekhangeza becela. Ayinendaba nayo, ifuna laba abantu abasondele nayo bebheke ukuthi wena uyiphi party iyasebenza lonto leyo minister. Yingakho uyothi noma uthi uzama ngandlelani chairperson ngemvume yakho, noma uminister engazama ngandlelani ukuthi wenza lento ukuthi iqhubekele phambili, ngeke izikwazi ngoba masiya phansi on the ground qala lapha kuma premier ize lapha komasipala kuyimeya ayiyi inhlobo kubantu lezinto into ezigcinela nje sixoxela ngoba lapha yana suke seyibheka ukuthi ubani uyinhlobo ne-organization awulutho kokunye baze bakutshele bethi esikunikeze lezo zinto lilonke nje angilwi bengizocela ukuthi lento yefunding ingaloni nixoxa nje layana ngoba i-theory leyo into engenzeki lezo mali zogcina zizenzele ezinye mhlambe uyabona nje mina bengilibone mhlambe amajezi mhlambe kuthiwa abaxhasiwe abantu kodwa mase uyalalela into lena zabantu mhlambe nika umuntu ozoyibhuquzela ngala ilalele ngale kwalo jezi kwalezo imali bazidlele ngoba ababesabheka ukuthi masimnika lezi imali kambe yini azohamba oyeyenza phansi kunama team nje kuyimanje esizogcina usungena okay egcina usungena thina ngeimali zethu sizama ukuthi sibaxhase ukuze kwazi intsha izibone naye kule South Africa ibalilekile uyayizwa lonto mina nje angili lilodwa nje ngithi no indaba ze theory nje ake siqhubeke ke siyeke ke sizame senze lento okuthiwa i-practical. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kaula. Bengicela nje ngokuhlonipha it was Dr. Basson from the department who passed on. Ngicela nje ukulungisa kuleyo ndawo. It's Dr. Basson. Honorable Siabi.
Sorry, my love. Sorry, sweetheart.
Okay.
Sorry, my darling. Ngiyaxolisa abantu uyena lo bengimazi lo wethu. Hayi ke naye kodwa phela omunye umuntu uyisidalwa sikaNkulunkulu and isinaye besiyamdinga ngiyabonga.
Okay. Inkosi mama. Babu Siabi. Honorable Siabi.
Thank you, Chair. In their presentation, and let me greet everybody, including the minister. In the presentation, there is an implementation plan in terms of years, but it doesn't indicate which year will be the first year. If we can be clarified as to which year will be the first year of implementation. Is it 2021, 2022, 2023, and so on? And still in the implementation plan, there's an indication of working together country to country at some stage. But the examples given, I take their examples given are only African countries. But I know we have people who were buried in other countries outside the continent. Maybe if we can be clarified that one also. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Siabi. Honorable members, thank you. I don't have anything to say except that I'm supporting the inputs, especially in connection with this questions or discussion or input of the implication of finances. So now is the time that I can give it to the minister. And then DG, Honorable the Minister.
Thanks, Chair. The DG will come first and then I will come last. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. In that order, we've heard the Minister what he's saying.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Minister, and thank you to all the honorable members of the committee for the questions. Maybe just to start with, I would maybe in areas where I couldn't understand the question well, maybe the members of the committee can assist me. There was an issue that was raised by Honorable Madlimozi about, he spoke about the 1980, but I think in the presentation I was referring to the 1970 convention, which is the Convention on the Means of Prohibiting and Preventing the Illicit Import, Export, and Transfer of Ownership of Cultural Property. That's the convention that is being used, particularly if you are repatriating heritage objects. But of course, in this case, we will also be repatriating human remains. And to say that that convention, it's not necessarily a South African convention, it's an international convention that is used by all countries of the world. And the issue of the office, I think it came from different members of the committee, the Repatriation and Restitution Office. This will be established within the South African Heritage Resources Agency, and it is supposed to have been established by the end of this financial year. And maybe I can take advantage also and start responding to Honorable Siabi's question about if we look at the implementation plan, when will it start? This policy was adopted by Cabinet only in towards the end of the financial year, 2020-2021. And of course, no provisions have been made for this 2021-2022. So we're looking at the implementation period starting in 2022-2023 going forward. And of course, we still need to go to Treasury. And I did note the issue of resources, which I fully agree with the members of the committee. That's not a definitive process because we still have to ask from Treasury to assist with whatever they can provide with us. And also we are not also looking at the full scale and massive repatriations at a go, because this policy is actually assisting us as government to then be able to process requests that are coming from families, that are coming from communities. It's not like a government will be going and saying, now we are massively repatriating. And it takes me back to the point that was made also by Honorable Zondi. It is true that countries of the world, for instance, in the continent, the issue of exhumation and repatriation, most of them have not been very happy about it, because they have always been saying, if you take people where they fell, you are removing those bonds of friendship between ourselves and South Africa in particular. But of course, we also had to listen to the demands of the communities, listen to the demands of families who from time to time come to government departments and say, now we would want to repatriate the remains of our loved ones. We want them to come and rest in the country. And there are examples that I can even make of people who have pronounced during their lifetimes, people like Kotane and Marx. They were internationalists who had indicated that they would be fine to be wherever they were. In Russia, they were fine. But at the behest of the families, a government had then to undertake to repatriate the remains. So it's not just a simple matter. This particular policy is just aimed at ensuring that as and when these requests are coming, we have got a way of processing this. We have a way criteria that we are using. And in the criteria, maybe just to go to Honorable Smisi, here we're not going to be looking at political affiliations. It's human remains of people who died in combat from different political formations. It's people who were not even part of any political formations, but who might have died during the colonial wars, and their bodies or their parts were taken away from the country. So they are not associated with any of the political formations in the country. Those are the people that we're going to be looking at. And also there are those remains of Africans in particular that were dug out. I made an example of in the 1909, Rudolf Pech, who is an Austrian anthropologist who was studying human science, and they were using our own people to study human anatomy. And they dug out those bodies and took them to their countries. And those are the people, they've got no political affiliations, but as part of doing this rehumanization, we will also be looking at that, because these requests come from academia, researchers who, as they research, they find out that this person who is in this museum comes from South Africa, and then they come to the department and say, please repatriate this remains. I remember the issue of class and Cloyd Pienaar. It was brought to the department first by Professor Rasool, and I'm just forgetting the other academic who also was part of that. And then we had to do that without necessarily looking at any of the affiliations. And then the issue of consultation. The presentation, if you look at slide 12, it talks to the road shows and workshops with provinces. Before we did anything, we went to different provinces, of course, within certain localities and municipalities to talk about this policy. And there were comments that were made by communities in terms of what they would want to, and they are integrated into the policy. So that's why we are saying that there were those kinds of communications. And yes, indeed, we are responding to the beliefs of different families, because it's the families themselves who come to government and ask for this repatriation process. And why we negotiate with countries have got their own laws. It's not just easy to then go and repatriate. There needs to be some kind of diplomatic overtures between the countries as and when there needs to be those repatriation processes. So because we respect other countries, therefore there needs to be those kinds of interactions. When we have not explored the issue of international, Honorable Denise, that does funding, for repatriation. Also, the DPW is not part currently of this particular policy. The departments that have been very pivotal, it's Justice and Constitutional Development, Military Veterans, as well as the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. And also we dealt with Department of Health. We also discussed matters with Home Affairs, because the transit of these human remains from their country, from foreign countries to here, we need to work very closely with those government departments. The people who are going to constitute this, Sarah, together with these cognate departments, as well as experts that they are still working on now to recommend to the minister, are those that are going to be forming part of the repatriation and restitution office, because we want to make it a point that this is professionalized, and people who are coming from different walks of life are actually assisting with this. And yes, it's true that this is just an example, Honorable Siabi. And of course, we thought that let's start from home, that is our continent. But we will also be guided by the requests that are going to be coming from families. So communities and stakeholders, I think I've tried to address that, Honorable Kaula, that when we started this process, we had to start by consulting, so that when we have this policy, it's based on the views of communities from different parts of the country. I would want to stop there unless there are areas that I might not have covered. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, DG.
No, thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. I think the issue around the how will the policy be implemented if a cost will be
Chairperson.
borne?
Sorry, my dad. Chair.
Yes, Mama.
Ngiyazicelela nje ngesihle. Ngizocela nje ukuthi kumhlonishwa wami uVusithemba mangabe senilokho uzongiphe nje just ngemvume yakho khona okusalayo la sengene kahle ke manje okuyimbalwa nje lokho okukhulunywa ngalento yamakhosi ngiyabonga labantu izitashula lezini right.
Oh, okay.
Uyangizwa ukuthi
Ngiyakuzwa Mama. Okay, Mama.
Yes, Honorable Chairperson. The issue of, I think Ms. Lima had indicated the issue around the consultation with other countries and their policies, and the question raised by Honorable Madlingozi about then the cost being borne by the country of origin. Yes, it is correct, but we do need to make sure that these are restituted and brought back to the country. And therefore, then we will have to work towards making sure that there is a funding mechanism. And that is why this special fund is being considered as an option to bring back those either those human remains or objects or heritage objects that we need. That will then assist in terms of implementing the policy, because then there will be funding mechanisms that would have been done through this special fund that we're talking about. Now, the question relating to all levels of government be included by Honorable Mhlongo. I think even in the consultations, as we've indicated, but we take it that we will then continue to engage. If you look at this policy, it's got implications for everyone, including the local government. And therefore, then they are indeed part and parcel of the framework and its execution. And that then links to Honorable Joseph's request that we distribute the policy, which we indeed, this would be a South African policy, and we will, it will be distributed. It will be on our, it is on our website for people to be able to access. Also, if they want to just familiarize themselves with the policy itself. The role of COCTA, I think Ms. Nima had spoken, but we take into account Honorable Malomani's indication. Because already, if we're talking about the multi-tiers of government, local as well as provincial, that already is in the space of COCTA, but we note the issue of direct engagement at national with COCTA over and above the departments that have been mentioned already in our presentation at this stage. And then when we talk about the issue of apartheid, I think I just think that honorable members, we must be always straightforward around this issue. The legacy of apartheid did not die in 1994. And it will be disingenuous for our people to be misled that things have disappeared, which were the ramifications and consequences of a brutal system like apartheid and colonization that is documented to have gone more than 300 years this country facing. And therefore then it is important that we understand as this department, one of our key issues is heritage. And heritage doesn't begin in 1994, but it's about as long as we as South Africans have lived in this country. And those people, who, some of them, Sarah Bartman, who were taken away from here, that was long before 1994. And our children must understand, why do we have to bring back those remains? So I just want us to always contextualize why the department have to make reference to the challenges around what we are redressing and what our constitutions say about dealing with injustices of the past. Now, on the issue of, I think Mr. Ndima has covered, let me not waste time, Honorable Chair, around the issue of affiliation, because a simple answer lies in just Sarah Bartman. She was not a political activist, but her remains were taken for research purposes and objectized all over the world, and to ridicule her and a Black woman. And it was important that those remains are brought back. It had nothing to do with political affiliation, and that the policy intends to service all South Africans in this regard. I think I have covered those that I believe maybe we needed just to indicate. Otherwise, we welcome the comments, positive comments from Honorable Zondi. We will continue to work towards ensuring that transformation indeed is a reality in this country. Thanks very much.
Thank you, DG. Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to honorable members on the feedback, which is really positive. This sort of policy, as members would have realized, is not an easy cut policy, because there are many players who have to be taken on board in ensuring that it happens. Now, Chair, I want to bring one point here, that not everybody will be repatriated back to the country, South Africa. I think that must be made upfront for a number of reasons. One of such, at the practical level, is a few years ago, the department under the province of Eastern Cape repatriated the remains of, repatriated the spirit of Chief David Stearman, the Khoi chief, the leader, the freedom fighter. And in that process, Chair, because he had to be repatriated from Australia, where he was repatriated from, the spot now has a railway line. So it was impossible to bring back his mortal remains. We have a camp, a camp in Angola, a military camp of the freedom fighters in Angola, where you have about, we have many people, about more than 300, who were cadres of Mkhonto Wesizwe. You also had Apla and so on, Zanla. 300 of them. You can imagine how much is it to repatriate one person. But also the practical situation there now in Angola is that that space is now a human settlement. So you can imagine there are many things. So that when people hear us talking about the policy, must also understand that each case would be looked into on its own merit. Two, Chair, I like the point made by Honorable Mhlongo about our own principle of Ubuntu. That will be kept in mind as we move on. But just to say that this has been accompanied already with the repatriation which has been done. Very much linked to Ubuntu, very much, linked to the feelings as much as possible of the families concerned. So that's the premise of the policy itself. I think honorable members in this interaction should note one thing, that South Africa's heritage is claimed by others on the continent here as theirs and elsewhere in the world, like you saw with Novodevichy Cemetery in Russia, with Moses Malume Kotane and Uncle J.P. Marx. That Russians, it was not easy. We had to negotiate with Russians because they feel that this, which we say is our heritage, is also their heritage. The heritage of the liberation struggle. And because of that, I think we should learn from that, colleagues, that actually how, starting with our own continent, how people look at us, we should look at them as well. And if we do that, there will be no so-called anti-foreigner sentiment or xenophobia, because they feel we are them, as it were. That happened, Chair, even with the reburial of Moses Moses Mabhida in Mozambique. And what Honorable Zondi is saying, that we should find a way of looking into this thing, where Mozambicans told them that, no, but this is us. They fell here, we were with them. We are brothers in arms against oppression, as it were. So it wasn't easy, Honorable Zondi. It wasn't easy, whether it's on the continent or elsewhere in the world. It never was easy, but it's a matter of negotiation and sharing what families want. I think the spheres of government have been dealt with. Honorable Umama Kaula, I hear what you say. I hear what you say, that people treat things on partisan basis. And I can assure you, Honorable Member, that even in this committee and outside of this committee, we have been approached by members of parliament who would have wanted to service their own constituencies. And we don't look at political affiliation. And Mama, you don't have to dig deep into your pockets. For instance, when you look at how you assist young people on sport development, on the equipment, and so on and so forth. If you raise that, Honorable Member, we'll definitely follow it up. We do not check what political affiliation you are or you belong to, and we remain open to that. But thanks for sensitizing us about some of the things. Some we know, and in some instances we have to come in and intervene and say, no, but we serve the entire public. We don't serve people of the ANC. We serve the entire public, because the fiscus is the fiscus of the nation, doesn't belong to the African National Congress, and it can't be treated that way. So I'm glad that when you come across some of these things, raise it here, but also challenge us. If there is in your constituency, there is something which is needed within the purview of the department, I can assure you we'll definitely do that. Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to honorable members.
Thank you very much, the Minister. Honorable members, we've exceeded our time, but I'm seeing that Honorable Makaula wanted to say something, and I've seen the hand of Honorable Mhlongo also, it's up, and Honorable Madlingozi. These are follow-up. Honorable Mamkaula.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Pindeng Bong. And ngixolise nje ngisangathi ngihambe kakhulu ngawo ngena kwenye isibaya kanti siqondene nesithi isibaya ngiyaxolisa. Kulezi insuku nje angikho right Nkosi yami ngeenkinga nje ngibhekene nazo KZN. No, engizokusho ngibonge nakusihlalo ku Chairperson, ngibonge ku Minister njengoba esho nje. Lana ngiyezwa la ukuthi kukhulunywa ngani manje, ngithi angicizelele lana ukuthi lento ngolo ngayisho until kuze mhlambe ngiphume kuleli committee ume zi-implement esibona zenzeka ngishiswe yilokho. Uminister honorable Mthethwa sisuka naye eKZN, and then ngijabulelayo lama portfolio committee alidwa abantu bakithi abamnyama. Lento ngizocela nje kuyibeka kahle icace. If usikhuluma ngokubhekelela laba bantu abahlukunyezwa ngize ngixolise nale apartheid bengisho ngenye indlela kanti ikhulunywa ngenye indlela ukuhlukumezeka kwe-apartheid. Lana minister sinamakhosi ayelwela okhanda mpondo. Lama khosi ayenqunywa elengiswa ethathwa efakwa ozankosi ezandleni ahambe esingawazi kuyimanje ukuthi ashonaphi. Ngo-2014 ngingena la eParliament, inkosi yakabhulu esebhulu kaDlamini bangibiza bahamba bayongikhombisa eMaritzburg phakathi edolobheni la ukhokho wabo owayelengiswe khona enqunyu. Bonke labo bantu minister angaze ngizwe kukhulunywa ngabo nokuthi ke nje kubhekwe iqhaza labo elikhulu abalibambayo babelwela okhanda mpondo belwela umhlaba wokhokho babo ababebulawa uhulumeni obandlululo. Engikhuluma nawe nje kuyimanje eMthandeni kunenkosi ekuthiwa uMeseni, nayo eyahamba yayofela endaweni ingakho nje kunehubo elithi zisemampondweni. Yingoba kunelokhuzana kwathathwa wabulawa wahanjwa wayofihla kaziwa. Okungenzeka kuyimanje njengokubona umhlaba kwenzeka Eastern Cape, Western Cape kuyaliwa, KZN kuyaliwa. Yingoba laba bantu labekhona imphefumulo yabo amathambo abo akakuthola ukuphumula ngoba thina sikhona eParliament sikhethiwe sihleli kodwa sesikhohliwe yibo bonke labantu. Yingakho mina bengicela minister ngiyezwa nje nikhuluma ngokhokha. Ukhokha ungomunye obias ngisakuyasho namanje ngisayiphinda lento. Minister nami nomunye oyimember of Parliament ukusebenza kwethu kuhlukile. Uyabona thina esila senza sure ukuthi sifuna ukubona zonke izidingo zabantu zenzeka. Nakho konke sibapromise khona kodwa inkinga phansi akwenzeka. Ukhokha nje angikhuluma indaba yabo unenkinga amakhosi afayo even now. Kunoma lungisa ukhokha uyaxova thatha inkosi obengayona ohlanga afuna ukuyifaka la. Mina ngithi kuwena mhlonishwa ngiyayicelela ngemvume yakho sihlalo minister. If ufuna into yakho ihambe kahle kungabi bikho lokuxokozela okubonayo esizweni esimnyama sengathi manje thina abantu abamnyama sisile. Iyakhala le yamphefumulo, ayakhala lawa amathambo. Afa eboshiwe, afa ajikijelwa kubondelana emgodini. Even now government wamanje asenzi njengo government wakuqala wayithatha mawuthi umuntu akanabani wayemthatha emphonse emgodini owodwa. Usenza ukuthi amngcwabe ngesizotha mina kunabantu abaningi engabufakaza ngaba abebengcatshwa kanjalo. Government wamanje akasayenzi lento wenza show
Full.
Mamkhawula ukumute.
Usivalile ngoku mama. Vula. Oh, ubusivalile mama, qedelela.
Okay, ngithi mina ngiyabonga batakwethu. Ningixolele. Ngithi mina uminister ngixolisile ekuqaleni. Minister ukuze sikwazi sindle emnyama ukubona siphumelela singalo sibuka ezinye izizwe ezisangathi thina samafeyila ukulitha ugovernment samafeyila stand izimbi this and that. Yile yamphefumulo yokhokho bethu ababelwela okhanda mpondo laba babelwela imhlaba ababulawa uhulumeni wamabhunu. Ngize ngithi lapha babefela khona yezwa babebulawa bethatha bayofakwa befakwa insimbi basakhala Minister Mthetho nawe sihlalo wethu ngoba asibanakile thina size sisuke la siyolanda abafele kwamanye amazwe sicabanga laba bafe manje kwepolitiki kanti ipolitiki ayiqalanga manje iqale phambili kokhokho bethu manje okwethu ofuna sikwenze silomnyango ufuna siqoqa amakhosi kube yiyona ngoba inkosi ekhona iyazi ukhokho wayo ukuthi wafa kanjani imost yamakhosi abantu abamnyama afa kabuhlungu elwela lelizwe amathambo awo akaziwa imphefumulo yayo iyakhala yingakho ubona ko-Eastern Cape Western Cape KZN kuyaliwe ngeke sikuthola ukuphumula if thina sithi we are member of parliament sikhohlwe imvelaphi yethu ngicela lokho nje mina akukho kunye bese silungisa ke lento yamagama esingise sawanikeza belungu one day kofuna ukusitshela ukuthi mawubhiwe ezinye zezinto lesifuna ngiyabonga bye bye ingakho mina kumakoti sibongile
NdinguNombasa elinye igama lami. Honorable Mhlo.
Yebo Mama Khawula.
Siyabonga Mama Khawula. Honorable Mhlo.
Mama Khawula uzongitshela nami bangiphela inye igama bangibiza uWinston and angilithandi lelo gama.
Churchill Winston.
But nonetheless, Chairperson, thank you. We welcome the response, but I wanted to be practical. My question was, when will you establish the special fund? When will that be done? I think my question was clear. Yes, you are intending to do that. Can you have a time frame? And when are you going to do that? Another issue that I wanted to say, we've noted this, I think the government has done it before without a policy. We welcome this positive policy. You've done it, you have an experience, you have the know-how how to do it. But the process is therefore, remember when you do something for the first time, you do it and there will be gaps and you have to address those gaps. It's what we are saying. And then you know, when we're talking about consultation, it's not only paper. You go to a municipality, you think you've consulted. You go to a province, you think you've consulted. When you talk about consultation, we talk to, it's either the department can share that they went to Orlando as an example, it's under Johannesburg. They went to Orlando East and there was a community meeting and they spoke about these issues. That is effective consultation. Thank you, Chair, for now.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Madlingozi.
Thank you, Chair. My first question was about the exhumation processes, and if it is going to be dealing with the exhumation ordinance of 1980, will that not, stop some of the things that we need to do because we'll be guided by that ordinance? That was my question. The other one is when the British government sent I can't remember the name of the lady that brought the chair King Langa Libalele Wamahlubi. And my question is, when she came and brought that chair, did the government of South Africa ask for the human parts that those leaders took with, and also when they also brought that bell the ship, did the government ask about the human parts that those people took with, and what did they say about those human parts? That was my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Madlingozi. Any intake, Minister? Direct the questions accordingly.
DDG, and then I'll come, Chair.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to speak directly to the question that has been asked by Honorable Mhlongo, the budgeting process is starting this month. We will then be going to a treasury to look for the resources. We will present that special bid to ensure that we are able to implement this policy. I think that's the one. I'm not aware, I'm not sure of the ordinance that Honorable Madlimos is talking about, whether it's an ordinance that applies to South Africa or it's an international ordinance, because we are talking about exhumations that are going to be taken outside the country. Maybe if it's a South African ordinance, of course, if there are restitutions, because as you can look at the policy, it talks about repatriation and restitution. Repatriation, it relates to where we are going outside the borders of South Africa. But restitution, it talks about where you are talking within the borders of South Africa. For instance, where you restitute the remains, you exhumate inside South Africa. You're taking those remains, you are taking them to another part of South Africa as per the request of the families. So I don't know how, maybe I need to even understand what the ordinance is all about. So I would just be very, concede that I'm not aware of the ordinance. The other question that Honorable Madlimos has spoken about, the incident that of the bringing back the chair of Nkosi Langalibalele. I'm also not aware of that. One might then have to just familiarize oneself with that incident. That's what I would want to say, Honorable Chairperson and the Minister, for now. Thank you.
Thank you, TTG. Minister?
Well, thanks, and the points made by Umam Kaula. Cha mama siyakuzwa ngemphefumulo yokhokho abasala enkundleni njengoba usho the ancestors, warrior kings and chiefs. Manje ke mama, this policy yanamhlanje yakhelwa kona lokho ngoba mesikhuluma nge-repatriation, we are talking about repatriation balaba bawa ngaphandle kwemngcele yase South Africa, outside of the borders of South Africa, and those who fell internally. So this policy, which has been passed by cabinet, wants to deal precisely with that. And bonko meseni njoba ubasho nje mama baningi nabanye no Bambatha kaMancinza, the great grandfather of the honorable member Zondi here, baningi abanqunywa amakhanda nazo. So lo mthetho sithi sivumeleni ukuthi uphase ukuze senze zona lezo zinto. We do precisely what you are raising, because without the law, without the basis to do things, tomorrow will be found one thing. I hear what happened also Nkosi yaKwaDlamini, as we have said, at the center, in the center of Mkungundlovu. I would say, Mama, if perhaps you are still around, I would say to you that some of the things which will happen will not necessarily lead to exhumation, because kwezinye zeindawo sekunezinto ezikhona, like sekwakhiwe sekuhlala abantu, manje ukuremove abantu noma umphakathi noma idolobha bese kuyombiwa, mhlawumbe ngaba nzima lokho. Kodwa what we are saying kule policy ukuthi we must show that respect, we must honor those, we must not forget those people. And here we're talking about warrior kings, chiefs and queens, long before the modern methods of struggle through political organizations. For instance, we have repatriated the likes of Troy Pinar, who have nothing to do with politics, Chief David Stearman, Sarah Bartman. They never belonged to any political organization. There were no political organizations at the time. But because they mean something to us, we have to do that. You know, as we're dealing with this policy, in Cape Town, there are mortal remains which were unethically taken away from where they belong, inside the country, in another province, Northern Cape Colesberg. So we are in the process of doing even that internal South African repatriation. It doesn't have to be outside of the borders, because that's very important that we ensure that Amakoso cell, our cell, the real royal blood, which you would be in the know about them, Mama. There are those who were imposed to our people as chiefs and kings, which were not kings in reality, but puppets of the colonizers. But in Kuluma Langamako Selwa, you will understand when I say that. Those people have a say in this policy, because they are going to be telling us that our great-grandfather, our great-grandmother, prince, queen, chief, whoever is in this particular part of the country, inside the country or even outside. I've already had a lot of people approach me, not only on mortal remains, but also on artifacts. I think Honorable Madlingozi was referring to one of the artifacts. There are many of those artifacts which are out of or outside of the borders of the country, and some are within the borders. They just have to be cleaned. So lo mthetho ke ma wenzela ukuthi sivunyelwe ukwenza precisely what you are saying, but also to say that as we continue doing it, we will be getting even more information from people who are concerned about what is happening. But thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thanks, Honorable Members.
Unmute, Chair. Unmute, Chair.
Chair, you are on mute.
Oh, okay. Now, thank you very much, honorable members, honorable minister, and the team. I'm hoping that as time goes on, the honorable members, as they've just said, they will need the updates, because this is a very important policy, and the policy is there going to start to try to get monies from the treasury. As this committee and the chairperson of the committee will monitor, and in between will ask the department to come and brief us. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting discussion, and siyabonga kwi-department and then to the government to pass this policy. Thank you so much. The next on the agenda, now we are going to get a briefing on the third phase of COVID-19 relief fund. Minister.
Thank you, Chair. As we have, we'll ask the DG and DDG, Dr. Kumalo, to take the committee through.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chairperson, Yes, we have reached the end point of the third phase. And I think as Minister have indicated that we are on a very clear path now of sustainability and economic recovery programs using the programs of the department. But we needed to close this chapter, and as we present, we will be taking through the honorable members on where we were as of the 22nd, and then any work that was a mop-up work that was done. Then after that, we'll then come back to inform members on how we have closed that process. So as we present now, it's up to the 22nd, mainly of July, because we needed to submit the report in time. I will ask that the DDG Kumalo takes the August committee of honorable members through the presentation.
Thank you very much, DG, and good afternoon, good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, good morning, Minister, and DG and my colleagues. I would then go through the presentation. It gives the portfolio committee an update, just focusing on the third phase, which, as DG says, reflects the numbers as they were on the 22nd of July. But Honorable Chair, we do need to indicate that we have now concluded this process now as of the 27th of July, and perhaps as we go along, we would be highlighting some of the areas, but all will then reflect in the closeout report as we tie up everything around this particular intervention. So as of the 22nd of July, the total number, I'm starting with the individual applications, Chairperson. Total number of individual applications, 7446, just from the arts culture sectors. That this report later on will then give the portfolio committee stats around the sport sector applications. So out of that, we had those 7446 in terms of the number received, but we need to take note of the fact that there was quite a number of applications that were duplicates, that were being picked up as we went along with the process. As of the beginning of this month, for instance, we were standing at 1167 duplications, and this number, Chair, is not included in the 7446. On the 22nd of July, we had adjudicated 7220 out of the 7446. And as we were saying, we are now sitting at the point where we have adjudicated everything pertaining to the individual applications. So the adjudication is completed, sitting at 0 now, as of the 27th of July. We had 6332 that were approved on the 22nd of July, and 763 applications that were declined. I must say, Chair and members, honorable members, that a lot of effort was put into ensuring that as many of the applicants that had put through their applications as possible received the funding or were adjudicated, and positive results came out of that. Hence, the total number of rejected, even upon conclusion, because we have those numbers now, sit at less than 1,000. And it's those applications that we seriously have really gone through, working with the panels that we are working with to ensure that this particular applicant really doesn't qualify, is not in the industry. Possibly some of them are chancers who are just grabbing the opportunity because they saw the advert going out. On the 22nd of July, we were sitting with 121 that were still being followed up continuously throughout this process. We were following up on those where we will find that the documentation that they had submitted was incomplete. And we had a team called a mop-up team that especially towards the last month were working on individually phoning those applicants who had incomplete. 4 were non-South Africans. In as far as payments are concerned, this particular slide, Chairperson, actually summarizes the following slides that I will be taking the members through. So the payments stood at a total of 5,100 applications that were successfully paid. And this number changes almost on daily basis. And the figure, for instance, if I could say, if you allow me, Chair, just to say that if, as of today, the figure stands at 5400, but be as it may, when we were preparing this report, this is where the figure stood as reflected on this slide. Total amount 51 million, which is based on the fact that each of the beneficiaries in this particular round of relief funding is getting 10,000. Honorable Chair, we need to also highlight that the total figure of 5100 actually excludes about 252 that we had gone to a level of actually paying, but their payments get rejected at the banks. And you can see the number there stands at, stood at 252. And again, we then have our teams following up again individually to say your payment is not going through. In some of the cases, we are even finding that it's reflecting that the bank account has actually been closed. In some of the instances, it's incomplete information or wrong information in some of the cases where a person, for one or other reason, provides information of a different bank. A total of 303 were being processed at the time of reporting, and that is why we are talking 5,400 now that have been paid, because it's inclusive of that number that was being processed when we were compiling this report. Next slide, please. I will then go quickly through the following slides, Chair. As I indicated, the first slide was summarizing almost everything pertaining to the individual applications. This is a breakdown per province, and as we have seen the trend also in the past, Gauteng taking the chunk, more than 3,000 coming just from Gauteng, and then we have got also the breakdown indicating the other provinces in terms of the application. Topmost our applications came from Gauteng, KZN, and Western Cape. Sitting at the bottom of the rangle is Limpopo, Northern Cape, and Northwest. Next slide, please. This particular slide, Chair, shows the detail around the adjudicated at that particular time on the date as reflected on the slide. I would not waste the committee's time by repeating these figures as reflected. This is a reconciliation slide, Chairperson, where we actually reconcile the information on daily basis, looking at the total captured applications. And I must say, you will find that this number often changes because as the teams, we actually do verification at 3 different levels, Chairperson. So as the teams verify this information, the numbers would change based on us picking up duplications and the like. So this is basically the breakdown as of the 7 days ago, as we are reporting, as we were compiling this particular report and indicating the status of adjudication at that time, but also indicating the status of payments at that particular time. At this point, we are sitting way over this particular figures reflected here. Next slide. That was information pertaining to our individual applications. I need to say, Chairperson, the process is being finalized this week. As we said, all adjudication has now been done. This week, we're cleaning up and just mopping up all the corners around the individual applications, and we are closing that as of this week, as the process has been finalized. In this particular slide, we provide information to the applications that we received from the organizations. Members would be aware that this particular relief fund intervention was broken down into two. There were the individual applications that were our first priority. That is where we focused. And our commitment in the advert was saying 10,000 Rand, and that is what we delivered on per individual. So that became our priority. Now, the eye has now shifted to the organizations, but I need to indicate that we were not just putting them aside. They were adjudicated. The adjudication was finalized as reflected in the figures that we are reporting on the 1103 total that we received. We adjudicated 1088. There were 15 that needed verification, but at this point, they also have been finalized that there is no longer any adjudication that is happening around that as well. 222 applications were recommended and 33 applications were referred, and those were being followed up, referred for outstanding documents. 833 applications were rejected. Please also note, members, that the further processing of payment to organizations will be subject to budget availability as indicated on the advert. As we said, our first port of call were the individual applications where we needed to put bread on the table. Now that we are done with that, we are looking at the organization and looking at the balance of budget, and if at all, we can then be able to process those ones. We also provided just specific information on the legends, living legends, Honorable Chair. I need to also indicate that in terms of the reported figure that we were reporting on in the previous slides, for instance, when we talk about the total that has been paid in terms of those individual applications, that figure is inclusive of this information, but we wanted to just zoom into this one and just provide more detail around the payments that have gone through, or the applications that have been processed from the living legends. The breakdown is provided per province. As indicated, sitting on our database is a total of 205 living legends split across the provinces as reflected on the slide. Out of those, as of the 22nd of July, I need to emphasize that, Honorable Chair, those were the ones that had gone through for payment, the 108. But as we closed the week, last week, already 122 had gone through for payment at that time. So the 122 at the bottom there is a combination of the 14 that had gone ahead and applied online. What we did here, Chairperson, we actually assisted the living legends not to apply online, but they were actually working through our provincial officials and national office, dedicated national office, the officials that are working on this, and actually going all out, even physically visiting the living legends to assist them with the documents so that they don't have to bother with the process of online applications. But it did turn out that as we were doing that, there were some that had gone ahead and applied online. So hence that column. There is about 3 living legends from Western Cape that indicated that they were not interested in obtaining the third phase. So I just wanted to just highlight very quickly the status up to date. We are pursuing, as of now, in terms of just the living legends, Honorable Chair, about 23 now, because the figure has changed, as I was saying. This is a moving process almost on daily basis. There is 38 now that we have decided to not pursue anymore, because over the last months, we have been following up continuously to try and get the documentation. The last date for the living legends is today, on the coincidentally, on the 27th of July, for those that had shown interest and submitted their documents, but had incomplete documents, and we are assisting them with that. Next slide, please. I will now quickly go through the sport section of the applications, again, starting with the individual applications. The total number of applications that we received from the sports sector is 1085 individual, 185 were duplications, and a total of 900 were then adjudicated. Out of those, there are 25 that were referred to the arts section, where it was found that they were wrongly sent. 78 applications were approved and paid. So we are standing at 780,000 payments done to individual applicants within the sports sector, with 797 rejections. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown, Chair, because in a case of sport, they were handling a less number of applications, which is 1085 as we reported. They have finalized and are doing their closeout report in as far as the individual applications are concerned. This particular process would also be done by the arts section of the department. And when we provide members with our closeout report, it would also reflect, as arts have done in terms of this particular slide, information pertaining to the number of applications per province, and then broken down in terms of gender classification, and also racial classification, and also people with disabilities on the further on the column on the extreme right hand side. Next slide. That was the individual applications, Honorable Chair. This particular slide talks to the organizations applications. The sport section of our department received a total of adjudicated a total of 153. It's organizations, sorry for the typo. 119 were declined. A total of 3 applications were referred to arts, 17 applications were duplicates, 11 individual applied as organizations, and a total of 3 applications out of the total that they had adjudicated were recommended. These are organizations, Honorable Chair. Again, we specify the issue of budget, the fact that our focus was individual applicants, and the fact that this particular round of applications would be finalized subject to budget availability. Next slide. This is a breakdown in terms of organizations. Allow me not to go through it. It's a breakdown again here in terms of the categories, sport categories, in terms of athletes, coaches, and those from the fitness industry. Next slide, please, which I think is the last one. Thank you very much, Chairperson. The focus of the presentation, as indicated, was to provide a status update as we close out on the individual application, which was our big chunk. We will then be compiling our closeout report and making it available as and when required by the portfolio committee. DG, I'll hand back to you.
No, thanks very much for that, DDG. I think, Honorable Chair, we are done with the presentation. Just to emphasize that on the issue of organizations, we would be guided by budget availability, which because of the high number of successful individual applications, that budget is almost exhausted. So that is why we needed to make sure that the individuals are the beneficiaries first, and within the limited resources we have, then look at organizations. But as things stand, there is clear indication that with more individuals benefiting, there is less budget to deal with the issue of organizations, whether it is from the federations or sport, or it is from the sector of the arts, a component of the organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DDG. Thank you, Minister DG. Now, honorable members, let's engage on the presentation. I've seen the hands, Honorable Mhlongo, Honorable Madlingos, in that order. Honorable Mhlongo.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, welcome the presentation. I wanted to find out, Chair, how much is the total budget for this phase? How much was budgeted for or projected? And another question, did you receive any appeals? Why I'm asking that, it's a follow-up because you have 763 were declined. Based on what? And then if there are any appeals on those numbers? I'm disappointed, and I wanted to find out with Momoya Wilson, because I sometimes talk, it's people, they misunderstand me. Why did you use NAC on this project? There's a allocation that you said use NAC and another entity. Why did you use NAC? And how much were allocated to NAC? And how far is the payment with the NAC and the allocation with the NAC? Because there was that you've used NAC. And how far is it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Madlingos.
Thank you, Chair. I must say with utmost respect that this sector is not regulated properly, because ever since the cabinet adopted the white paper in October 2018, and South African Parliament endorsed it in November 2019, nothing has been written about this white paper, and clearly the minister and his department has no plans to execute what the white paper is advocating, because this sector needs to be regulated properly. The truth must be told that that mismanagement played its part during the first phase and then the second phase. And now this department is talking about that there is no money. Through all these two phases, artists are still living in distress. They are suffering depression, still having their kids out of school and being kicked out of their houses and not being looked at properly by the department. These artists are not lazy and they are not looking for handouts, but because this department has failed them dismally, they cannot work because of the pandemic. It's been 2 years since the department has destroyed the creative industry, in the sense that they haven't been working with them and really supporting them in their quest for relief. It is no surprise that their bank accounts have been closed, Chairperson. The creatives have been living from hand to mouth, and they have been surviving in that way for all their lives. This department, Chairperson, is not following its mandate. Now, the question would be like, what happened to the USIBA monies, Chairperson? SIFSA was created with the promise of creating an industry councils to be formed, but those industries were never formed. While SIFSA has been getting monies, why is that, Chairperson? Chairperson, why is the ministry and this department shoving SIFSA down the throats of artists? Where is SIFSA's financial statements? We've been asking that for a long time, but this department is really not looking at giving us that information. Chairperson, another question that I have is, can we have the names of these living legends, and can we have the faces? Chairperson, it looks like the department is spending too much money to pay people who are distributing monies to the needy individuals. How much money is spent in distributing these monies to the living legends? The last question that I have is why is the look and feel of South African Olympic squad in Tokyo is white? Is more white than it should be based on the demographics of South Africa. Why are we having too many white faces on the Olympic squad in Tokyo? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Matlenkosi. Honorable Noxian.
Thanks, Chair. And let me join other colleagues in welcoming the report. It's really appreciated. But I just want to check whether this first, second, and this third relief, are they all part of the 150 million that was budgeted for? And if so, in this third phase, how much, maybe I'm repeating the same question asked by Honorable Mutongo. How much was there for distribution? The report says you were paying 10,000 per person in the arts section. How much were you paying per organization? And how much were you paying per living legends? The same question will arise in sports. How much were you paying per individual in sports? How much were you paying per organization in sports? And when can we expect a closing out report? And my last question, Chair, would be if we can just be reminded of the objectives of the relief fund. When you were introducing the relief fund as a department, what were the objectives? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I'm getting an SMS from the administrators saying that when we are speaking, you must put on your video because of some reasons. So I'm getting that message. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Siabe. Honorable Veronica.
Chairperson, I'm just going to connect and put off because our signal is not good. My questions, thank you for the presentation. My questions are as follows. I just want to check up with the administration or with the department, the bank rejections. How will that issue be resolved? Will you be going back to each and every application to try and see how this can be sorted out? Then on slide 7, the arts organizations, 833 out of the 1,033 individuals were rejected. Why were there so many of these applications declined? And I've got the same question on the sports side, because there's a lot of people, there was like 97 applications were declined, and out of the organizations, only 34 were approved. I'm just curious, is that all for administrative reasons, or is it because of the budget that is not sufficient? I also have the same question. I'm actually sort of repeating what Honorable Siabe asked around the living legends. Have they been receiving funding for more than once? And how much was paid out to these out to the living legends? And I also want to know whether they all received the same amount, and was it also 10,000 per person, like with the other applications. And then another thing I picked up is when I look at the payments that were made to individuals and organizations, what is the reason why the males are predominantly being paid? Is it because less or fewer women applied? If you can just give me clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Dijk. According to my slides, that's all so far. DDG? DDG?
Yes, sorry, thank you. I'm looking for my scroller. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I would try and address all the questions. And yeah, I'm sure my DG would then come in if I leave anything out. Honorable Chair.
They are saying the IT is asking that if we are addressing somebody must show his or her face and then take off the video if you're experiencing. Once I was experiencing, they did tell me that now my network is clear. That's why we are seeing that I've been in the screen. They even monitor that if we are really not having a network. I thank you to all members and our departmental officials. They ask that we must show our faces. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's my face. Can I please switch it off now because I need to refer to documents. Yes, thank you, Chair. Okay, I'm going to address the question on budget first. I'll try and address because it came from several members. The total amount of relief that was after reprioritization set aside by the department indeed was 150 million, as Honorable Member Siabi had indicated. And what then the department was doing, as it went from one relief fund to a relief fund intervention to another one, using that same pot, it was then working on the balances as we went along, as we went from the first to the second to the third. So that's the same pot. We're then looking at how much we would get a closeout report. We will look at how much has been spent, get a full report on that, and then look at the balance. So as we went into the third phase, with about 70 million. I would like to apologize, but we would provide the specific figure to the members as we provide our closeout report. And these figures actually differ, was made up of the balances from the work done in the first phase and the second phase by our agencies that were actually implementing, doing the payment on behalf of the department, which was BASA, NAC, NFVF, and Sports Trust on the side of sport. In the third phase, I'm just trying to put all the related questions together here, Chair. In the third phase, the process that we followed was that as the department, we did the administrative part around the issuing of the call, overseeing the adjudication process, doing the verification. It will then go through 3 levels, as I indicated. Then it will go to our finance. Our finance will do the last verification, put the applications in batches, and then submit them to 2 of our entities that we had actually signed on, who were the ones that were actually doing the actual payment for us. So the 2 entities that did the payment was BASA and NAC. And we had gone through that particular process where we sat with them to actually get an assurance, which is what also National Treasury asked for. They asked us to give a letter of assurance to say these payments would actually be processed, and there are systems in place that would allow these two entities to process these payments. So the first entity that did the payments, 2023 payments, is what they did out of what we are reporting was BASA. And when the budget that was allocated to BASA was exhausted, then the process shifted onto NAC. And NAC is the one that right now have been processing payments. As we conclude the process, the payments are actually being done now by NAC, which means the balance of the payments that we are doing. So to date, NAC, out of the total that I did say, I'm referring to the current figures now, Honorable Chair. So out of the total figures that I spoke about as of today, NAC have paid 3377. As I said, BASA paid 2023, and as of today, NAC have paid 3377, which means they have paid a total of 33.77 million. Based on the fact that we are paying one person 10,000 rand. Hence the total amount where we are sitting as of today, which is a total of 54 million, which is consolidated from what BASA paid, which was the 20.2 million, and what NAC have to date paid 33.7, and they would continue to the end as we finalize this process today. So in terms of the question that came from the honorable member, that was saying how much was given to NAC. As I said, the entities were actually, they started working with us from the first wave. At the beginning, NAC was given 20 million for the first wave. For the second wave, they were given 10 million, or that is what was transferred. And out of the third phase, a transfer of 29.3 was made, totaling to 59.3, Honorable Chair. Out of all of that, and I'm just now addressing also, I think Honorable Madlingozi was speaking to the fact that there are monies that are being paid to the entities that are distributing. In this particular case, for instance, for the total of 59.3, that was paid or transferred to NAC to pay these different phases from first to the third phase. The admin cost.
Point of order, Chair.
Sorry, DDG. Yes, Honorable Mhlong.
Chair, I would like to apologize to Dr. Khumalo, but I wanted to find out why this was not presented to us, these figures. Why did we get a summary of a presentation? Because if you don't give us information and you give us late when you ask questions, something is fishy. Thank you. I'm concerned, Chair.
Honorable Mhlong, I've taken your point, but I'm suspecting we're supposed to do follow-up questions and query that. Let's listen to them and let's note in order that at the follow-up we need to say what was saying, that there are gaps. There's nothing wrong what you're saying, but can we take the notes in order that we must do follow-up questions? Thank you, Honorable Mhlong. TTG.
Thank you, Chair. So, okay, where I was indicating that out of the total amount of 59.3, which was for the 3 different interventions, just talking to NAC only, 1 million went towards the admin costs. So of the total amount, wherein then the total balance out of that is going completely and entirely towards disbursement to the beneficiary. I have indicated to date how much then has been paid. What NAC requested, which was approved following all processes, was that the balance that had been left from the first and the second be allowed. Or
just a moment. I'm being advised again by IT saying that your network is clear. They are saying whoever who's presenting or who's talking must show the face until the end. They are asking that this committee is in session. We need to show up until at the end. I'm sorry about that. I'm just having that notice. Okay, teacher.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think I was saying I have then indicated to date how much has actually been paid by both entities, and we have given them authority in writing where if there was a balance that was left out, for instance, in the first or the second wave, where they then consolidate all that outstanding amount so that we can be able to pay as much as possible for the third wave. And all of that was actually done in writing, Chair. We do have it on record. So that's a response around budget. I'm just going through my notes and see the other areas, Chair. In as far as the issue regarding appeals, now that we are concluding the process and forwarding the rejection letters, Honorable Chair, we will then focus on the issue of dealing with the appeals, because obviously we cannot be able to deal with issues of rejected figures in the process where you are finalizing payments to those that have been successful, which we have done. We will then report on the numbers to the portfolio committee as we conclude that particular process. Why the NAC? I think I've actually responded to that, Honorable Chair. We had a direct engagement with the Council of the NAC, and we also sought in writing, also National Treasury asked for the same thing, an assurance letter that they would be able to, they have the system, because the agreement was actually reached prior to all the other issues that later on emerged. So in terms of how far the process is, I think I've responded to that as well. DG, I'm sure you will then talk to the issue of the fact that the sector is not regulated and what we are doing with regard to the white paper. I'll come in, DG, if you want me to, but there's quite a lot that has now been done around the white paper. We do have a status update in terms of the areas that we are focusing on in terms of implementing the white paper, as Honorable Madlingozi referred. We have broken down our implementation plan into short, medium, and long-term interventions. And right now, in this financial year of 21-22, we have commenced with the implementation of the white paper as per those categories. There was a question which I think, DG, you will possibly talk to around what happened to Usiba Manis. The issues of the living legends. There was a question around the living legends. First of all, there was a request that we provide the names of the living legends. Honorable Chair, we will do so. We would provide the full details around the living legends that are made reference to in our report. I've spoken to the issue of how much we are paying the people that are distributed. Case in point was what I indicated around NAC. And then there was also a question around how much are we paying the living legends. I would just answer this question holistically, Chair, by indicating that all individual applicants were paid the same amount, which is 10,000. So when we also talk to the living legends that have also been paid, it's the same amount, the per person rate that was paid also for the other creatives that have been successful. The same thing also applies to sport. The sport individual applicants were also paid, that's 78 that we reported on, were also paid 10,000 rand per person. I think I've responded to the question of the total budget. Chair, we do have a full report on that. We are utilizing the reprioritized budget as indicated, and we're using balances as we went along. We went into the third phase with 70 million, which was to cater for the third phase of relief. And as DG was indicating, our focus has been the individual, and as members saw in the report, we are sitting with about 6,500 plus that have been recommended that we are paying at this point in time. And our focus will then look at the balance of the budget, just noting that the total amount that I am citing, Honorable Chair, includes also the payments for panel members, etc., which we would also be including in our closeout report. The closeout report, Honorable Chair, there was a question, when can it be expected? We are cleaning up and sweeping up all the odds this week in as far as individual applications are concerned. We will then be preparing that report for our DG and the Minister, and in about a period of about 2 weeks, we should have concluded with all the details that are allowed, also taking from the reports that will be coming from the entities, so that it's a consolidated report. There was a question around the bank rejections. How will it be resolved? We are actually resolving the issue of the bank rejections, Honorable Member, as we go along. So as the information comes through from the entities that were doing the payment for us, that particular detail comes back to us. We have got a team that will then go, as you correctly say, exactly that is what happened, would go to individual applicants in terms of contacting them using whatever communication mode they had chosen. What we did in the application form was request that each and every applicant indicate to us their preferred mode of communication. So we will use that to communicate with that. And I must say, in some of the cases, we don't get them and we try a different mode of communication. Some of them are responding, some are not, are responding within 24 hours, some are not responding, but the process we are not closing, because our objective here is to make sure that at least all those that actually qualified would be able to get their monies. In terms of the information on slide 7, on the arts organizations and the reasons why these are being rejected. Our criteria that went out with the advert, Honorable Member, was very specific because remember, the main objective of the relief was to provide the, as the name says, to provide a certain level of relief to the creatives, directly to the creatives. But in the process of doing that, we also recognized the fact that there were organizations that were struggling. But we took cognizance of the fact that while there were organizations that were struggling, there were also opportunities that were made available through other avenues. For instance, the PESP and other avenues where the organizations could be able to get the kind of support. So we had then the criteria that were looking at very specific proposals that actually, for instance, were a proposal that was geared towards providing support to marginalized genres, just to cite an example, marginalized communities, to cite another example. So you would find that out of the 1,000 plus applications that we found, there were many of the organizations that forwarded proposals just based on whatever business opportunity or enhancement that that particular applicant wanted to create. That wasn't necessarily to do with the key focus areas that had been identified in the advert. So that is mainly why the reason for those particular. It's generic, open kind of applications that in most cases you would find that that particular person would be talking about job retainment when this was very specific. This particular opportunity presented here was very specific in terms of the nature. There were a few questions that were addressed to my to Sport, Honorable Chair. I think my colleague DDG Khan is here. If you allow me to leave that section of the questions to my colleague before we hand back to the DG. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, DDG. DG? DG?
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'm not sure if DDG Khan has anything to add before we proceed with the summing up of our response. DDG Khan? Honorable Chairperson, let me proceed in terms of the questions that have been raised. Honorable Chairperson, maybe let me start with the issue on the question that is raised by Honorable Madlingozi. There is no funding called USIBA funding in the department. USIBA were USIBA ministerial awards to recognize, like you have summer awards, like you have SATMA awards, but this was a government department initiative to reward and recognize the creatives for their work in various categories. So there is nothing called USIBA fund. It was awards, and those awards took place. We've got a full report of those awards and people who benefited and were recognized. So that funding was just for awards. Now, the question raised also then by Honorable Madlingozi is relating, Honorable Chair, to the revised white paper and whether there is a plan or there is no plan. It will be disingenuous to answer this question like saying we have rolled out everything in the revised white paper. Honorable Chair, I think all of us know what happened soon after the November, that in then the period of March 2020, this country faced a lot of lockdown. And based on that, some of the activities required to be performed, the country was almost on standstill for more than almost 6 months. So when then the opportunity arose for us to do what we call administrative planning, to roll out the white paper, engage with critical stakeholders in relation to the objects of this white paper, this process has been undertaken. And as DDG Kumalo has indicated, the plan, if the honorable members want us to present to this August House, we will do so. But there is a plan with dates, with priority areas, medium and long-term issues. There are those that require legislative amendments. That's why we regard them as long-term. And then there are those that are short-term, that require urgent attention. But let us also accept the honesty of honorable member that the sector is not as organized as would like it to be. That is why this initiative, not just on the issue of institutional arrangements, but also in terms of the law, it became necessary that one of the key priority acts to help regulate this industry is the Copyright and Performance Protection Amendment Bill. And I think honorable members know very well how far this bill has been, up to a level where it was taken to where it could have been accented by the honorable president. Suffice the challenges around constitutional master areas that were not met. And this bill, as honorable members would know, was referred back to Parliament. And this bill, Parliament has taken steps to open up for consultations as of the 4th of August. This will assist in terms of ensuring that, particularly what honorable members would have always raised, including the issues of collection societies, to look after the welfare of the creatives, would then be best regulated. To do that, you need the law to be passed. And I'm sure with the processes as of the 4th of August, consultations, the Parliament will be able to help get to the conclusion of this matter. Now, on the issue of the white paper, is the same issues that we have identified that will help organize the sector, regulate the sector better. So with these pieces of legislations, we are confident, as Minister had already said, that for us to support this sector is crucial to ensure that it contributes to the economy, the growth of this country, to its GDP, to its employment opportunities, and to fight poverty, particularly for the young people. So Minister has been very clear about agency of implementing this revised white paper, but most importantly, also that at the end of the day, let's get copyright amendment bill as well as performance and protection bill accented, and then we'll have a regulated industry. Now, how can we then say this department has failed dismally? I think it is an incorrect statement, Honorable Chair. It is this department that is talking about the relief report you are providing. There was no new money that was given to the department for the relief. Department had to scramble and find reprioritization of the budget to respond to the plight of artists. Now, fortunately, the honorable member is agreeing with us that it was not based on the department's imposition of COVID-19. COVID-19 is a pandemic that is outside of the control of the department. And when he says then, because of COVID, I think, how do you then blame COVID on the department? Department responded against the issues of COVID because creatives and the sportsmen and women could not practice their craft. And that is why then the relief was introduced as a complementary form of support over and above what government in other various initiatives was doing. But it was a reprioritization budget. Chair, because of time, maybe I will then move and just cover the last issue. I think the last issue that was then raised and we need to respond to is again the issue of cutting across. The budget was looked at and then determination of 10,000 rand. It didn't matter whether you are in sports sector or you are in the arts sector. And that has assisted us to reach more people for the purposes of relief so that they are assisted. And why the appeals were not really on the plate, it's because when we looked at the issue of how best we can assist the creatives and the sportsmen and women, when the decision was that rather have efforts to provide them with support, call them, send them emails, ask for additional documents outstanding rather than reject. That is why the successful people who have been supported is above 6,000, only because additional and extra efforts were made to avoid rejections and rather have them being contacted, creating even more PUB teams to contact them, even by telephone, to say this is what is outstanding. Hence, the issue of appeal was not necessary to be there because people were not being rejected. They were more supported than rejected. Those who are rejected now are mostly people who don't comply at all, because despite all efforts to follow up, they could not respond or provide requisite requirements. Chair, I think I would like to end there for now, unless there are follow-up questions. Thanks. Honorable Chair, you muted or I can't hear.
Thank you, DG. Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to the questions asked by honorable members and the responses provided by the department. Chair, I think I need to emphasize this point, that it's quite crucial that Parliament fast-tracks the process of the two fundamental bills as it relates to the transformation, particularly of the creative sector. It's important that we make that point. And that, Chair, is in the hands of yourselves as Parliament to ensure that that happens. So we must make that point very clear. It's not about the executive. It left the hands of the executive long time ago. It's now with Parliament, because it's going to deal with a whole host of issues which have been a perennial problem in the creative heritage, in the creative space. Amongst others, the royalties. Amongst others, the collecting agencies themselves of the work by the creatives in particular. Amongst others, Chair, will deal with issues of mitigating an arbitration through the tribunal, where the creative sector will have a representative. You won't have to go and have a judicial commission of inquiry, but it would have a tribunal which will be constituted by judges as a permanent feature. So the passing of these bills are important. As your colleagues in the Portfolio Committee of DTIC is grappling with the matter, I would suggest, Chair, that the Portfolio Committee, ours, Sport, Arts and Culture, take interest in that process, in that parliamentary process, which we respect very much. Secondly, Chair, over and above what the DG has said about the white paper, the process which I think he omitted to mention, the process is on of implementing, incremental implementing of this white paper. But as I said, it's going to be complemented in a much bigger way by the passing of these two pieces of legislation, the Copyright Amendment Bill and the Performance Protection Amendment Bill. 3, Chair, I think we must dispel this narrative which is void of any truth, that government will impose any structure to the creatives. And here I had the name of SIFs, or the Cultural